Okay, and this video is our last little bit of sanding before we start the staining process. We need to do a little cleanup on our charging stand here. As you can see on mine, where I put it together, I've got a little bit of a gap here, a little overlap, where this top piece wasn't quite as long. And I've got a little unevenness on the edges here. It's not totally flat. Same thing over here. This one I sanded a little bit at an angle so that it's sticking out down here a little bit. And we just want to get all the edges cleaned up. This is also a good time that we're going to be checking our glue seams on the front, the back, all that inside here so that everything is nice and clean. So we're going to look at some hand sanding stuff we're going to do. Potentially using files if you have a lot of glue down in here, and power sanding. So we're going to be using the disc sander this time to clean up our edges and flatten our bottom if we need to. All right, so before we go in, again, you need safety glasses. Take off your jewelry, all that. Hair back, definitely need to pull the hair back since we're going to be using the power sander. You do not want to get that wrapped up in the power sander. And again, have your stuff ready to go. You'll need your charging stand, you need your sandpaper, and you'll be coming back into the shop. So first things first, I'm going to show you the sandpaper part. So again, sandpaper wise, if you have just little rough spots, like little edges where the glue didn't totally stay put inside, or just a little edge, you're going to work that and sand it. Now, if you get a look again, grain on my pieces runs this way diagonally, fairly vertically here. So I'm going to kind of work in that same direction as the grain, because this is end grain, and when we stain it, it will be much darker, but we want that as smooth as can be by hand. We'll still machine sand this, but we want it as smooth as can be. And again, double check any faces. If you have glue spots from your fingers on here, it's going to show up. So I don't have glue here, but it is slightly discolored. So I'm going to sand that a little bit more. And hopefully that's just a surface discoloration that I can do that. Again, I'm checking the direction of grain before I begin to sand. So you can see that. Double check the front. Doesn't hurt to just do a little touch-up sanding here. Again, checking all those pieces. Okay, I've got a little bit, just you can feel a ledge there. I would not recommend trying to power sand the back as much, but again, that's a great place to hand sand, clean up that back end, get those seams nice and smooth and flat so that you don't notice that transition as much. Okay, so now that we have that, like I have this little bit unevenness here, so we're going to use the electric sander. It's going to be really important that we take care of that and do it safely. The best way I recommend to do it is to actually use one of the sleds from the table saw here. We're going to be using the disc on the end, not the belt. Too hard to keep that straight. We're going to be using the disc on the end. So we need this in here to make sure it is actually going to stay square to that. One note of caution, and it has this arrow right here on here so that it spins toward you. So it's spinning in a clockwise fashion. You do not want to get your pieces much past that arrow, because as it's spinning up, it'll actually kick that up towards you, or it'll go sideways and cause it to get really crooked, or it'll just rip up a corner of the wood. So you want to keep it flat against there. So what I'm going to do, you always, as much as you can, put the back side, the bigger surface area, down on the table. You're going to kind of pull that back up against the sled here so that it is nice and straight, flat against there. And you're going to keep pressure against the sled and gentle pressure against the disc, and you're going to slide it back and forth, just keeping it on the piece. So basically from the edge right here, sliding stuff up to about halfway, and then back. Don't go clear off back like this, because the edge of the disc will cut in and you'll have a really gnarly edge. So keep the whole piece you're working on the disc, but light pressure, especially on this one. If you push too hard, you're gonna burn your wood, okay? So again, dust collection should be on. So you wanna make sure that the blast gate is open. I'll leave the dust collector off for this video so you can hear, but you should have dust collection on, which means you need hearing protection as well. So once we know where we need to sand, we'll square up our sides here and get that going. So turn the switch on. Again, keep your wood off of that disc while you turn it on. You're gonna keep it square against the sled. Gently start pushing it back and forth. Do a handful of passes, keeping an eye on if it's flat against there or not. Pull it back and let it cool down a little bit. It gets quite hot to the touch. If you try to keep pushing on it, it'll overheat and burn. So let it cool down for a few seconds and then do it again until it's flat against the disc. Okay, I think I got this side good. We'll shut it off and do a quick double check. So with the wheel stopped, I can put it against there, and you see it's pretty flat, both on top, flat against the disc, down the side, and along the bottom. It is flat. Now yes, it does get dusty, especially without the dust collection on. Normally it would pull that down in there. Once I got that side squared up, I'm gonna go square up the other side just to make it even. This shouldn't take as long because it's pretty clean. Do the same process. There we go, nice and flat and even. Okay. And then some of you might have really crooked glued on legs where it's crooked and gnarly. So once you get your sides squared up, you should be able to flatten out your bottom. This works just to scuff it up a little bit too, so that you put it on the side. And you're gonna carefully hold it. Don't get your fingers to slip through there or anything. Same process, just scuff it up a little bit. If yours is really crooked, we might be better off trying to cut it than trying to use the disc sander. Okay, simple, everything's clean. There's still some of the rough saw marks there. So it's still scratched up, but we're gonna scratch that up just a little bit more. Again, once you're done using the disc sander, you do need to use a dustpan and broom and clean that off. So find your nearest dustpan and broom, take the sled off so you can just sweep out the table. Keep it clean. It throws a lot of dust, even with the dust collector on the disc sander. So just take note of that. It's really dusty. Again, dump out your dustpan. Okay, the last thing then is we still need to hand sand this just a little bit. Well, you might be able to see, especially on this end, if you get the angle right, where the disc spins, there's swirl marks, okay? You might not be able to see it on camera, but there are some swirl marks in the grain from the disc. So again, take your sandpaper one last time and go with the grain. With the grain, and get rid of those swirl marks. Those swirl marks will show up very easily once we get stain applied. So try as much as you can, get rid of those swirl marks all around on the ends. Now on the bottom, if you got some parts that ended up becoming really smooth, like these side here, it's sanded down and it's like perfectly smooth. This side's still a little rough. So what we're gonna do is scuff this. To scuff this for the glue, this is the one time again where you go against the grain. So we are gonna, this part is good. It's got the jaggedness a little bit, so it has tooth marks from the saw blade. This side is too smooth now. So we're just gonna hold it down, and then we are going to go against the grain with a lot of pressure just on the bottom Notice I'm not going back and forth. I'm just going, pushing really hard in a single direction. And then what I'm doing then, you might be able to pick it up, is I'm putting little scratches into the wood so that the glue has something to bite onto, okay? Once you've got all that cleaned up, there's no swirl marks on here. Make sure your edges are all good, everything's clean, and you're ready for the next step. If you happen to have a bunch of glue squeeze out in your corners, in here, and especially down in the bottom here, what you're going to need to do is borrow a file from your teacher. If it's just on this section here on the front or on the back, down here, you can borrow a flat file. So a file is essentially metal sandpaper. It's flat, has a wide flat part and a skinny flat part. If you have glue coming out just on this area, you literally just kind of gentle pressure, scrape it back and forth like sandpaper. You may have to sand after it again, but you're gonna scrape the glue off using a file. If it's way down here in the corner, way down in here, you won't be able to get your sandpaper, and this will actually cut too much into it with a flat file. So you're gonna get a square file. It is square, okay? So you just get that and you work until it is flat on the corners and the sides, sitting down in there at the 90-degree corner. Keep working that till the globs of glue are gone. You can do that from both sides, okay? So get everything sanded, final hand sanding on the glued pieces. If you need to, use the power sander to square up the ends. And again, after the power sander, hand sand that with the grain to get rid of the swirl marks from the disc. And if you have any glue out or glue blowouts here, clean that out with a file from your teacher, okay? Work carefully, pay attention, and do not over sand. You don't want to make these crooked on your final sanding.